We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Good afternoon, and welcome back to another edition of Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I am your host, your navigator, your guide for the next 90 minutes. Yes, that's 90 minutes. My name is Robert Phoenix, and I will be with you cavorting through the stars. And I'm going to a 90-minute format on Wednesdays now because my schedule has changed just a little bit. And instead of moving the show up to 11 and making it from 11 to 1, I've just decided to keep it at noon and shave 30 minutes off because people are creatures of habit, right? So people get used to 12 noon as a date and time, actually the time and place and time and space. So here we are for the next 90 minutes. I'll be looking at some astrological trends, and of course, I'll do that for about 30 minutes, and then the remaining hour, it's up to you. It's your time. You can call in, and you can get a reading. We're going to try to do as many readings today as possible, about 10 to 15 minutes a clip. And if we do that, I can probably get about 5 to 6 people in 1 hour, which is possible, and it's completely doable. So the big news is we are coming up on Mercury retrograde. Everybody knows that, right? We are getting very, very close to that wonderful event. We are in the shadow of Mercury retrograde. Let's look at the exact date here for its arrival. Let's see. I think we've got Mercury going retrograde. Let's see what we got there. It's on the 21st. So that's still 12 days out. I guess I would say within, 5 degrees is within the shadow of Mercury retrograde. So we still have some time here to get some things done, put some things, some plans into action before we have to go back and re-examine, reassess, and retrofit our course of action. These are challenging times, boys and girls. I ain't going to lie about it. I'm not going to lie about it. We've got Mercury retrograde coming up on the 21st, and right around the, it looks like the 31st, 10 days later, we get it right on Halloween, we get into that very hard slam between Uranus and Capricorn. We're there now. I mean, it's only separated by 1 degree. And in astrology, when you're talking about tight angles and orbs, 1 degree is nothing. It gets very intense when it's exact or as close to exact Now Saturn, Uranus breaks. Uranus is moving backwards, and Pluto is moving forwards, which is interesting in and of itself because we have these two forces that are basically going in two different directions, and that creates in and of itself some interesting friction and velocity. But the square is a mighty, mighty square. It is a big one, and it breaks big time 9 days from now on the 18th of October. That's a Friday. That's when Uranus moves into 9 degrees, and this is Greenwich Mean Time, 9 degrees at 9:57. Pluto at 9:11. Isn't that an interesting degree? 9:11. 9 degrees, 11 seconds. So that's when we come into contact with the 9 energy. And the 9 energy is about the end. It's about the end of something. If we look back to the last time Pluto was squaring Uranus, remember that? Earlier this year? Guess what degree it was at? Anybody? Any guesses? This is back in May. It was at 11 degrees. This is the last time we had the Pluto-Uranus square, 11 degrees. Where is the Pluto-Uranus square happening this month? At the end of the month, 9 degrees. Put them together, what do you get? You get 9/11. And then Pluto enters into, or actually Uranus enters into almost an exact orb on Friday the 18th, where Pluto in Capricorn will be at 9 degrees 11. And oh, by the way, Chiron in Pisces also at 9 degrees. Yep, that's right. And Saturn in Scorpio will be where? At 11 degrees. So we have 9 degrees, Chiron in Pisces, 11 degrees, Saturn in Scorpio. So here we have this 9/11 theme concressing with this square. Now, from a geopolitical, astro-geopolitical standpoint, 9/11 is far from being dead as a concept in our consciousness. It doesn't go away. People are still looking at it. People are still talking about it. Of course, there's a large number of researchers that are trying to put forth their views on 9/11, some of them at great risk, by the way. And it is not going away. So I guarantee you that when we see this aggregation of 9s and 11s, one of the things that will come up is a resonance and an echo of 9/11, 2001. Now that can look a number of different ways. First of all, I believe it's Architects and Engineers for 9/11, a group that, in the eyes of most people, has been thoroughly infiltrated. They are in the process of buying a billboard in New York City. I'm not sure where it is. I think they're trying to get it as close as the ground zero as possible. So it'll be interesting to see if and when that happens. Apparently, they're very close. So we're looking at 9/11, the original events, as an echo, as a reverberation through time. And then we're also looking at 9/11 as perhaps something else, something different. Because one of the things that most people fear is that we're going to have another 9/11 kind of event. And oh, by the way, on Halloween, Mars is in Scorpio at 9 degrees, and Mercury is retrograde in Scorpio at 11 degrees. And that's on Halloween. So yet we have another layer of 9/11 symbolism coming at us. So we do fear, or at least we have, I think, here's my take on this. Because the original 9/11 event has not been completely resolved. And there's a couple different ways that we could look at this. First of all, let's just say, for the sake of the dominant paradigm and holding up the idea of the matrix, that 9/11 happened the way that it happened. As a result, we went off and we got involved in not one, not two, not three, but at the very least 4 to 5 foreign wars. We can just count them off. First is Iraq, that's easy to see, right? Actually, the first was Afghanistan. That's where the first invasion went. And the thing about Afghanistan, it was kind of like, let's go back in time. So 2001, 2002, you're thinking, Afghanistan, so what? What's in Afghanistan, right? It's a minor country, lots of mountains. Although, yeah, maybe bin Laden might have been there. The Russians got their asses kicked there. So maybe there's a reason why we shouldn't be going there in the first place. Aside from the fact that the reason that we were going there might be completely false. So there was Afghanistan. And just as we're getting used to the fact that there's something going on in Afghanistan, and oh, by the way, Pat Tillman, American hero, dies in Afghanistan, friendly fire, we got to wrap our heads around that. Next thing you know, we're in Iraq. Yes, we're in Iraq. Taking Iraq over and hunting down Saddam Hussein. All right, so that's 2. Now, eventually, ultimately, what happened is Pakistan. Yes, we made a deal with the Pakistanis so that we could go into Pakistan and police their skies, ultimately using drone technology, and on the ground to take care of, quote-unquote, undesirables. So now we've got 3 wars. Well, why don't we throw Libya in there? Because, of course, we were involved in Libya. That's 4. We've been involved in Syria. That's 5. We've been involved with Egypt, certainly on the first revolution. That's 6. Now we're getting into Somalia. Now we're getting into Yemen. Yeah, Africa is going to be the next battlefield. Trust me on that. So all these things have happened now as a result of 9/11. And the reason why is because theoretically we were to rout out terrorism, right? We were to rout it out. And every time we turn around, there is a report that we have killed or apprehended some Al-Qaeda mastermind, the evil genius, the resident evil genius of Al-Qaeda, and ultimately resulted in the capture, killing, incineration, and burial at sea of Osama bin Laden, if you believe that story. So theoretically, in the old days, hey, war is over, right? The war is over. We theoretically got the guy. And yet, we still have this ongoing war of terror. At least that's what's being proposed to us. Now, the battleground for the war of terror is shifting very quickly. You can look at what's happened here in the United States. The face of terror can be anything from somebody from Russia, Kyrgyzstan, wherever the Tsarnaevs are from, to maybe a black American. Aaron Alexis, if you believe that story. Or maybe it's somebody like a young teenager, Adam Lanza. The new terror is a teen with too many drugs on his hands, too many guns lying around, too many bad feelings growing up. That's the new face of terror. So none of this has been resolved. And so part of the problem with 9/11 at that level, at just the complicit matrix-based storyline, it has not been resolved. Now, some people believe that the glory of the One World Trade Center, formerly known as the Freedom Tower, has nothing to do with freedom, will be the crowning achievement in all of this, and that we will be able to put the ghosts and the past of 9/11 behind us, and it will mark a new level of prosperity. There are some people who believe that even though that site is filled with ritual occult symbolism, that they are pointing even the quote-unquote dark ones, the high priests of Enochian magic, they believe that those guys are giving us clues to this greater reality, this greater cosmic reality that we're taking part in. So don't sweat it. It's okay. It's all for the good. Because if you dig around deep enough, you'll figure out that it's really just, sacred symbolism, sacred architecture, and it's, and we're all really worshiping the same God, but we're worshiping it through this aggregation of symbols, and they're just trying really hard to enlighten us, to give us clues as to why we're so messed up and why they're so together. And they're sticking a big one right in our face with the One World Trade Center, right? Get it, people. Now, if that's the case, then I ask you, why is hangar number 57 at JFK Airport, hangar number 57 at JFK Airport, that is where all of the evidence and dirt and samples, part of it's on Staten Island, but another big chunk of it is at hangar 57 at JFK Airport. And that hangar has barbed wire around it, and it's guarded 24/7. And oh, by the way, ironically, the people that used to own that hangar, the name of the airline that owned that hangar, Tower Air. Tower Air. How ironic is that? And so what we have here, again, we're working through this model of navigating through the astrological matrix. I'm looking at the symbols. I'm looking at the numbers. Reverberation through time. What do we have? We have this echo, this reverberation of 9/11. And it's coming. Now, the resolve part on the matrix side of things is that there's been no closure, right? Even though theoretically Osama bin Laden has killed, there's been no closure. Nobody walked through the streets with a bell in her hand ringing, hear ye, Osama bin Laden is dead. The war on terror is over. You can now go back to bed. Nobody said that. It's kind of like, when Obama got elected, and he said, I am about hope and change. Hope and change. Hope and change. And then when he got elected, he said, well, I am the change. I am the change. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like you get all excited, like, yeah, man, you studied constitutional law. Yeah, you didn't vote for, the war in Iraq because, well, you weren't there. But if you were there, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You may not have voted. You look good. You're bright. You've got a nice, couple of kids there. You've got a wife. Looks all good on the surface. You certainly speak really well. But then he gets in there and says, well, there is no hope. Are you kidding me? Where's the hope? There's no hope. And there certainly isn't change, but he says, I am the change. Because I am the first African-American president. I am the change. Then you kind of feel like you got shortchanged in that transaction. It's the same thing with bin Laden. We have this event, but there's nothing has changed. It's still the same. Nobody feels safer. Do you feel safer? We've got people crawling all over the internet, listening to this show right now. Listening to it right now. Do you feel safer as a result? I certainly don't. But this is the price we were paying for living in a technocratic society where the all-seeing eye is staring right back at you 24/7. But the other part, the other part of the resolution is not the matrix fairy tale of the story that we've been mostly consensually agreed upon, or we've mostly consensually agreed upon, due to whatever reasons. But the other part of 9/11 is that, based on all the inconsistencies, it has not been resolved. It is still this lumbering sphinx that's out there in our consciousness. And we know something's not right. We know something's wrong. We know things are amiss. We know things are off, but we can't put our finger on it. And that is the chimera of the mind that haunts us, even though we don't realize it, because it is completely unresolved. We have one story, which is one version of the timeline, which is, it happens, we go to war, we get the bad guy, but guess what? Nothing changes. And then there's the other version of the story in the timeline, which is, it happened, we didn't have the right story, we were fed lies, and we're still sifting through the debris of that experience in our lives. And that is the unfortunate part. Either one gives us no resolution. Now, we have Venus in Sagittarius. It's just got into Sagittarius as of yesterday. And that's a very interesting shift from Venus in Scorpio. A lot of people, Venus in Scorpio, that has been a very, very powerful, intense time. Very powerful, intense time, especially as Saturn at one point was running parallel with Venus. And then, actually, Venus was running parallel with Saturn since it moves a little faster. And running parallel with the true node, which is at 7 degrees right now. It was at 8. That is a time where the ooze and the pus comes out of your relationships. You go into the depth and the dark of Venus and Scorpio, and you look at things that you don't like, or you don't want to see. And then you have to make choices based on that. Or if you don't make the choices will be made for you. Now, if you've done your work, if you've gone into the depths, if you've crawled around on your hands and knees through the catacombs of intimacy, then you come out the other side, and it's Venus in Sagittarius. And Venus in Sagittarius is about truth, freedom, justice for all in relationship. Now, what I find interesting, as I relate this back to my own life, is that I see myself in a place now where I may have to seek legal aid for a relationship, a deeply broken and dysfunctional relationship in my life. And guess what? Here's Venus in Sagittarius, right on time. Just waiting for me to pick up the phone and call a lawyer. Law rules Sagittarius. Sagittarius rules law, philosophy, religion, universities, animals, sports. By the way, the NFL is dead. It's dead. The NFL, it's in the crosshairs. There's a new story coming out, and this is on Frontline. It's called League of Denial, and it is the death blow. It will be the death blow to the NFL. The NFL, as we know, will not exist the way it does in 10 years. They're coming up on the 50th Super Bowl. The people that run the Super Bowl right now in the NFL, they're complete occult symbolists, just like everybody else, just like all the other sports leagues. They've all been infiltrated. So the 50th Super Bowl, which, by the way, will take place in Santa Clara, California, in the new stadium for the 49ers, I think will mark a major, major turning point for the NFL. And after Super Bowl 50, you will see the decline of the league. And within 10 years, the sport will be so unrecognizable that it will have moved to the back burner of our sporting consciousness. And a lot of this has to do with Uranus and Aries. What does Aries rule? It rules the head. What does Uranus rule? Technology. Things happening quickly. Aries is war, it's the head, it's football. And you have this square going on between Uranus and Pluto. The the NFL has a very checkered past when it comes to dealing with concussions and concussion safety. And it looks very much like they held back lots of research and evidence pointing to the fact that if a person has a concussion and they are not allowed to recover in a appointed amount of time. Now, first of all, you never fully recover from a concussion. A concussion is a bruise on the brain. Now, and out of that bruise, there is some scarring. Now, over time, if you have the ability to sit out, let's say you have a concussion, you sit out 2 weeks. And if you're really sophisticated, you get to hang out in a hyperbaric chamber, breathe all that oxygen, and the concussion symptoms go away rapidly and heal to the best of their ability for a much longer period of time. But if you didn't or don't, and you went out the next week and you got another concussion, well, it pretty much increased the risk by 100-fold by getting concussed on top of a concussion. And so the NFL has been hiding this evidence according to this film, and they've just settled their lawsuit. They settled their lawsuit with former players, and they did it because this film was coming out, and they knew that. And they had to get it done because the players would have had this film in their back pockets, and they would have gotten even more money from the NFL. But I guarantee you, it does not bode well for America's favorite pastime. All right, I'm going to do readings in about 3 minutes, so 775, hang in there. I'm going to get to you. We're going to talk. One of the things that I looked at today is John Lennon's birthday, by the way. David Cameron, also his birthday. And Sean Lennon. So Sean and John Lennon share the same birthday. And I was looking at Sean Lennon's chart. And then I read the bio. It's a brief bio about what was going on in John and Yoko's life at that time. And John and Yoko were addicted to heroin at that time. They were doing smack while they were conceiving and having Sean. Fascinating. And when you look at the chart, Sean Lennon's chart, and by the way, he was labor-induced. Yoko had a cesarean. And she had the cesarean, so it would be on John's birthday. It wasn't this magical cosmic event where, oh my God, look what happened. They're born on the same day. What are the odds of that? What a magical child. What a beautiful boy. No, it wasn't quite like that. Yoko, who is quite cunning. Yoko reminds me of the queen in the Kurosawa film Throne of Blood, which is Kurosawa's version of Macbeth. She's Lady Macbeth. That's really who Yoko Ono is. So if you look at Sean's chart, you'll see that the moon mother is conjunct Neptune, which means that he has a very strong bond with his mother, almost an addictive bond, okay? And again, what were they doing? They were doing smack. So Sean has moon in Sagittarius, and he has Neptune in Sagittarius. Moon at 11, Neptune at 9. Hey, what do you know? There's 9/11 again. And I didn't even go looking for that one. He also has Pluto at 9 degrees in Virgo, and that goes along quite nicely with his moon in 11 degrees Sagittarius. So there's another little 9/11 hanging out in his chart. But anyway, the moon conjunct Neptune is very addictive. There's also a very kind of delusional relationship about the mother as well. And that moon Neptune squares Venus. And Sean, if you hired me as your astrologer, I would tell you will never have true intimacy until your mother passes away because of that Venus moon Neptune square in your chart. I hate to tell you that, but it's true. You have Venus at 2 degrees in Virgo, probably too critical about who you're with anyway. So we have this interesting conjunction between the Moon and Neptune. Well, guess what? He has Sun conjunct Sun, obviously because his dad's born the same day as he is, right? But also Mercury conjunct Sun in his own chart, and Pluto conjunct Sun. So we have these two massive, and we're talking massive here, transpersonal planets affecting his emotions, the mother, and the sun, solar expression, and the will. And what do we get when Pluto conjuncts the sun? It is death. It is death. Pluto conjunct sun. And that has marked Sean's life deeply for the entirety of his life. He has Saturn in the 12th house. He's kind of a recluse. He has a lot of fear. He's afraid of being shot. He lives with that fear. And Saturn in the 12th house exemplifies that. What's his Saturn in? His Saturn's in the sign of Leo. That's the father. And what does it square? It squares Uranus. It's losing the father very quickly. There you go. Saturn-Uranus square. It's right there in the chart. Astrology never lies. Never lies. Okay, let's get into some readings here. Let's go to the 775 area code. Let's find out who they are, what they want, and where we can go. Hello there.
Hi.
Hi. You're on the air.
All right.
So,
That was a good show. I was just calling in to listen, but I didn't even know anything about readings or anything.
Well, welcome. This is your first time listening and calling?
This is my first time listening in and calling. Yes.
All right. So what do you think of the show so far?
Oh, it is great. It is great.
Well, that's
I love
good.
it.
That's
Yeah.
good. What's your name?
Roz.
Roz. Roz, you've
Roz,
called
yes.
before?
I have?
Yes, of course you have. I remember you.
Well, I don't remember calling in. It's very rare that I have a Wednesday off. I'm never off on Wednesdays.
You know, I seem to remember you. I think I told you should do commercial voiceovers or something like that.
That's right. You sure did. That's right. So I could have been off that Wednesday. Okay. Well, it's been a long time.
I don't forget much, Roz.
I remember you telling me that, too.
You know, I'll tell you a story.
Uh-huh.
This is a blast from my past.
Okay.
This is actually, I don't know if to do this. This is kind of how I remember things. One time I was watching a show on TV back when I was about 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And the show was called Captain Satellite. And Captain Satellite. And I remember watching the show, and it was one of these kids shows. And there was a boy, and they had kids on the show, and the whole idea was that they were on a spaceship, and they were pulling these levers, and they were pressing these buttons, and they were doing all these things in space, and then they would have cartoons, right? I mean, it's one of those 60s kinds of shows. Anyway, I saw this boy on the show, and I remember watching him, and his name was Sonny. I even remember the kid's name this day, Sonny. And probably about a couple months later, I was taking karate at that time, and I was taking karate with my dad, and there was this kid. There was this kid at the karate studio, and I recognized him. And I walked up to him, and I said, "Hey, isn't your name Sonny?" And he said, He said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, I saw you on Captain Satellite." It was very funny. And my father asked me, he said, "How did you know his name?" And I said, "I saw him on Captain Satellite." So I'm just telling you that stuff sticks in my head, for better or worse.
Okay.
That's the moral of the story. All right, so you want me to look at your chart? Obviously, that would be a good thing, right? Are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that. I was switching to the Bluetooth.
Okay, do you want me to look at your chart?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go there. Hold on a second.
Okay.
I have to find a chart that I can overwrite. I don't want to do that one. Let's go. All right, there we go. Let's do this one. He'll be happy that I overwrite his chart. I did this reading for this guy who was very into secrecy. In fact, he would not allow me to look up his chart before I actually did the reading. And
wow.
And when I had him on Skype, he wouldn't even tell me what his birthday was. He had to type it into the Skype message bar. And then after I did the reading for him, he erased all of our Skype message conversation.
Wow.
So he'll be happy that I'm overwriting his chart. When's your birthday?
7/11/69.
November 11th?
7/11. July.
1969.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What time?
Okay. On my birth certificate, it says 7:20. I'm sorry. On my birth certificate, it says 7:34.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I started studying some other stuff, and that actually puts me at 4:20. So I don't know. I'm just gonna say 7:34 because that's what's on my birth certificate.
PM?
AM.
AM. Okay. And where was that?
Shreveport, Louisiana.
Yeah. I remember this. My father was born in Shreveport.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. That's for James Burns, who's been on my show before, Liz. Okay, here we go. All right, so I got you there. All right, what's your issue, challenge, question?
My issue is, what is the, seems like there seems to be something in the way of me learning this Spanish, this foreign language. So I don't know which house is in charge of foreign language, but I don't even know what my question is. That's my challenge. That's what I'm going through right now. What is going on with this?
Are you trying to learn Spanish?
Trying to learn Spanish. But, growing up in Louisiana, we also spoke a broken French. And I don't know if it's because when I start learning, I've been trying to learn this for 2 years, which is a shame because I don't believe it takes that long to learn another language. Seems like the French words get in the way, literally. Literally get in the way of me learning the other language, literally.
Have you tried Rosetta Stone?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I can't get past Mahir. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. Adult female. I can't get past that.
Yeah, Muhir. I think we've had this conversation before.
Exactly.
This is kind of a deja vu moment. Weird.
Oh, actually, I don't think we've. Yeah, I was going to say I don't think we've had this conversation before.
We have had this conversation. Yeah, this is unusual. Okay. Here's what I would do.
I love deja vu.
Here's what I would do. So you have Jupiter and Uranus conjunct in your third house, and the third house generally is the house of articulation, communication, and languages. The ninth house represents foreign cultures, different countries. You have Chiron up there at 8 degrees in your ninth house in Aries. Uranus has been on your Chiron. It's at 9 degrees now, so it's moving away from your Chiron. So theoretically, you'll have more concentration the further Uranus moves away from your Chiron. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
That's important. But you should, theoretically, I would find, if Rosetta Stone is not working for you, find another technological tool, because you've got some great, placement with Jupiter and Uranus conjuncting in the third house, which is the house of languages. And Uranus is technology. And Jupiter expands that. So I would continue to look for some other form of technology to help you. Mercury in your chart, though, it's afflicted with that, because you have Mercury theoretically, you should have a very retentive memory because you have Mercury in Cancer, but it's in the 12th house. And so you have Mercury in a water sign, in a water house. So it's hard at times to get to the level of retention that you need. Your Mercury also squares Uranus in your chart. So you could have kind of a challenged attention span at times. You could be taken off track, you know, you could be distracted. In
La La Land somewhere.
One of the things that you may want to do is you may want to try like total Spanish immersion. And short of moving to a Spanish-speaking country, the way that you could do that is you would buy Spanish newspapers, you would watch Spanish language TV at home, and so you would immerse yourself even more in learning it, but on a consistent basis. For instance, when I was in Mexico, I was there for a couple of weeks, and after a couple of weeks, I started to kind of learn the language. Well, why? Because it was around me all the time. You know, it was around me. I was talking to bartenders and waiters and all kinds of other people and trying to talk to them in Spanish. I'd get up in the morning and I would get the newspaper and I'd try to read the newspaper. I was watching Spanish TV. You know, if you get a Spanish-English dictionary and you get a newspaper, you'll begin to recognize words.
Okay.
And you'll begin to recognize words and patterns. And then once you start that pattern recognition, you watch Telemundo or Activision or whatever they have. Then you watch the Spanish language, you hear the Spanish language, you read the Spanish language. So for you, it's going to be about immersion because you've got Mercury in Cancer and Mercury's in the 12th house. You cannot have a superficial relationship with learning this language. You need to go deep.
Okay. I understand that.
So are you still in Shreveport?
No, I'm in Reno, Nevada.
You're in Reno. Okay, so what I would do now is I would go and hang out at Mexican restaurants or Mexican bars where they have margaritas or whatever and try to talk to people. You know, you're just going to have to kind of immerse yourself deeper. That's the only way to do this with the affliction from Mercury to Uranus. So go to the strong suit. The strong suit is Mercury in the 12th. Now your Mercury does sextile Saturn, and your Saturn is in Taurus. So we're talking physical, right? Physical. You know, newspapers, magazines, face to face. One of the things you may even want to do is hire a tutor. You know, hire somebody to talk to you. You know, for 45 minutes a day. You know, say, what does this mean?
I think that's a good idea too. That's a great idea.
Yeah, because you need, with Saturn and Taurus, you need the physical.
Okay.
Very important.
Okay.
All right. Does this make sense?
I always wondered where Taurus was in my chart.
What's that?
I always wondered where Taurus was in my chart. Where the money? That's the money, right?
Yeah, it's in the 10th house. If you work hard for your money, you will be rewarded. That's how Saturn works in the 10th house in Taurus. Or now, is your job involving more Hispanic people?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So Taurus,
and the franchise that I want to buy, before I buy the franchise, I want it to be bilingual because there's a lot of Spanish-speaking people here, and they work hard. They work really hard. So I definitely want to employ them for sure.
Obviously.
But I want to be able to speak the language also.
Yeah. Obviously, the bull is a very prominent symbol in Latin culture from Spain to Mexico, bullfighting and such. You know, Taurus's symbol is the bull, so you've got Saturn up there in your 10th house. One of the things you may also want to do if you have a little extra money, go on a vacation. Go on a vacation in Mexico. Go spend 2 weeks in Mexico. Go hang out somewhere and immerse yourself. And you don't have to go very far. You don't have to go very deep. You don't have to spend a lot of money. But that that you'll spend, even those 2 weeks, if you work hard and, do some reading and do the TV and talk to people, things will begin to click. And my sense with you is once you get it, you'll get it. You'll totally get it. It won't be one of those things where it'll be this slow curve. All of a sudden, it's going to click for you. You're going to have to work
Oh, really? Okay.
You're going to have to work up to it because that's Saturn. But once you do, you'll get there. It'll be fine. All right?
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
Do you want to stay on hold or do you want to say goodbye?
I want to stay on hold.
Okay. Thanks for calling in, Ross.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, let's take another call. This is from the 401 area code. You are on the air.
Hi.
Hi.
This is Shanti. I'm a friend of yours on Facebook. It's my first time calling. I'm a little shy to speak on the radio, but I would love to see what you have to say about my chart.
Okay, I'm sorry. What was your name again? I didn't get that.
Oh, I would just like to hear what you have to say about my chart. I'd like to see your interpretation. Can you hear me?
I can hear you okay. Is it Chelsea?
Shanti.
Okay. All right, let's get into your chart. All right, so
Okay.
Let's see what we got here. Give me your birthday.
January 2nd, 1976.
Okay,
And that's
what time?
7:40 a.m.
And where was that?
in Lynn, Lynn, Massachusetts.
Lynn, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Okay, here it comes. Bang. Okay, I have you Capricorn rising.
Yes.
Sun in Capricorn, Moon in Capricorn, and Mercury also in Capricorn. Is that right?
Yep, that's me.
You are a quadruple Capricorn. How's that feel?
Tough.
I can only imagine. My Saturn is conjunct your Sun, by the way, at 11 degrees. So
yes, I remember talking about that on your Facebook page.
yeah. So here we go. What exactly you've got a mystic rectangle too in your chart. Did you know that?
Yeah, but I don't know what that means exactly. So there's not too much information about that online.
Yeah, the mystic rectangle is like if we look at astrology as or the chart as like an incarnational pattern, right? Like that's the pattern you've chosen for this lifetime. To go through, to learn, evolve, all that stuff. People that have mystic rectangles tend to go through significant change in almost all areas of their lives because of the way that the chart is generally, or a number of areas, not all areas, but a number of areas in their lives simultaneously. So like when one thing happens to you, 2, 3, 4 things happen to you. So people that have mystic rectangles are here to understand transitions because of the points of the rectangles themselves. Now, what's interesting is that you can have a cross or square. You can have a grand square in the chart, which is different than a mystic rectangle. In the rectangles, you have some relief with the rectangle. There are sextiles and there are trines. So the key understanding with the mystic rectangle is that when you go through transition, that the transition gets smoother and smoother and smoother in your life when you realize that you have both stress and opportunity kind of commingling together. And the whole idea with a mystic rectangle is that when you go through a period of challenge or stress through transition, and I'll describe how that works, by the way. When you go through that, then theoretically over time you would get better and better and better and better and better, so that somewhere around midlife you are very adept at change and ultimately can help other people with that and to show them how to go through changes and how to facilitate change and to roll with the punches or find their strengths and weaknesses, to not freak out, all that stuff. So how the mystic rectangle works is, let's use transiting Uranus and transiting Pluto, for example. Transiting Uranus is at 11 degrees, it's at 9 degrees Aries. Okay, next year, it gets up to 15/16 degrees. At that point in time, you're going to have Uranus-Jupiter conjunction in your fourth house, in your third house, not your fourth, your third house. That's going to be really interesting for you. It can almost indicate a huge amount of overload on the mental level, like too much information, too many things coming at you. You've already got this T-square also built into your mystic rectangle with the Sun scoring Pluto exactly, and also scoring Jupiter. So when Uranus kicks in, it's going to, what it does is it hits the angle of your mystic rectangle. So Uranus and Jupiter create change together very, very quickly. And because it's in the third house, it's a complete reorientation of your psyche and your mental capacity. It would be akin to receiving a massive download, a massive data dump from, the higher spiritual realms. You're getting huge amounts of information and then having to process that. And what happens then is that as Uranus hits your Jupiter, that's the conjunction, right? But it triggers everything associated with your mystic rectangle. It opposes Pluto. It's almost like it can be too much. It's almost like it can be overwhelmed when Uranus opposes Pluto, because when we see the Uranus-Pluto opposition, the dynamic there is breaking free from constricting psychological constraints in your life. Like, you will not be able to tolerate anything that will hold you down or keep you down, whether it's ideological, philosophical, psychological, or even in the realm of relationship, because we're talking about Pluto and Libra. So that's next year. Now, what that also triggers is it triggers the sextile to Mars in your chart. So now you've got this Uranus-Mars sextile, which is all about improvisation, acting quickly. You have Mars in the fifth house in Gemini. It's kind of nervous anyway, Mars and Gemini. Peripatetic is a word that I would use. But Uranus and Mars together can facilitate really fast, rapid change. And if you're an artist of any sort, it can be extremely inspired. Like, you could go through an amazing period of, again, almost creative overload or overwhelm. Then, as it triggers your Mars, well, then guess what? Mars gets triggered, and what do you have opposite your Mars? You've got Neptune. You've got Neptune. Now, luckily, Uranus will trine your Neptune, so you get a nice hit on that. But every single point on that mystic rectangle gets activated. So for you, it is higher learning. It's philosophy, law of religion, expanding your consciousness with Pluto on the cusp of your ninth house. It will have to do with groups, affiliations, and friends, and kind of, collectives, visions for the world of tomorrow, all that stuff. That's the 11th house. Mars is going to impact Mars, your ability to manifest will. Opposing Mars opposition Neptune is tricky anyway, because you have to sift through illusion all the time. The Mars. Anytime you get Mars in a difficult aspect with Neptune, it gets a little tricky, because you also, that Neptune is up in the 11th house. You're dealing with friends. You're dealing with, can you trust friends? Are friends, going to be two-faced or duplicitous? That's Mars, Gemini. They may show you one side, and on the other side, they may be complete backstabbers, or they may have one set of tendencies in front of you and behind your back. They could be complete, meth addicts or whatever. That's that Mars-Neptune opposition. So you're always going to have to temper your enthusiasm and your zeal. You have to temper that with kind of like a dose of realism. But the other thing too is that with this, you have at the beginning of the year, you have a major T-square going on And that T-square is going to be Uranus to your sun. That's going to be Pluto. Pluto's right on your sun right now. I mean, well, it's 2 degrees off. But by the end of the year, you're going to have a Pluto-Sun conjunction. Uranus is going to square your Pluto, and Uranus is going to oppose your Pluto. And that's a major life transition. It's huge. It's really big.
Any expect that?
Well, here's what I think. I mean, I think that, like, when you came on the air, you said to me that you were shy, right? I mean, that was one of the things you said to me. That T-square is going to obliterate that shyness. No, seriously. Your sun is so close to the ascendant, right? It's like, can I ask you a question about your birth? Was there any like weird conditions around your birth? Like, were you preemie? Did you come late? What happened to you when you were born?
I think from my understanding, it was a smooth birth. I don't know of any unusual circumstances. Because
sun on the ascendant, to me, just before the ascendant, in some ways symbolizes somebody that that wasn't really sure they wanted to incarnate. That's
wow.
With that sun. And sometimes this can manifest in challenges with birth.
Wow.
But I feel like that and we're talking relatively shortly here, by the end of the year, I feel like that Pluto on your sun and the square to your sun and to Pluto and to natal Pluto, and you've got that Pluto-Sun square in your chart anyway,
right.
that you are going to experience some kind of rebirth. Because once Pluto crosses your sun, it's now headed towards your ascendant. And whatever started, back in 1976, or even before that, would be 9 months prior to 1976. So it would be 1975, right? January. That'd be 1975. Whatever started in 1975 comes to fruition. Like, your incarnational process becomes complete, finally, once Pluto crosses your sun and then moves towards your ascendant. Now, that might be scary for you, because one of the things that will happen is that it will, in some ways, force you to come out of your cave, whatever that cave is. And it could be anything from, sometimes this could result in the loss of a job, or it could result in something more benign. It could be you being thrust into a position which confronts you and your ability to be here, to be accessible, to be open to the material world, to fully be 2 feet firmly planted on terra firma. So this event is coming, but I don't want you to be afraid, because I believe it's a powerful and ultimately benevolent event for you. It's about pulling you further into this world, because you have, with sun at 11 degrees, and right on your ascendant, you have great powers of endurance. I mean, you're here to be a part of the earth plane. That's what Capricorn is all about. I mean, that's why your chart is so front-loaded with all that Capricorn, because you decided to be here. It's like, okay, I'm going to pick this day, this time. I'm going to get all this Capricorn because I really need to be on this planet. I got to figure this thing out this time. Because it also feels to me that whatever lifetime you had, at some other point in time, you took an early out, you took an early exit, and you did not get to finish out what you came here to do. That's my sense around that. So
I've had that suspicion. That's interesting that you say that.
So you are I think that this is a major period coming up for you, but don't be afraid of it, because, and by the way, Pluto will go back into your 12th house in 2014 rather. It'll be the last time, so it'll touch your sun, but it will not be like it's going to touch it at the end of December, beginning of January. That, to me, because Pluto will take 3 passes over your sun. It's already hit it once. Yeah. It's coming. The second pass comes up, and so it's going to be. I think it's going to be very powerful. And whatever you have to let go of in your life, whatever you have to shed, Just let it go. Just let it go. And I know it sounds, hey, some guy on the other end of this call is telling me to just let go. It's harder in real life. Trust me, I understand it. But I think that it will be inevitable for you because of this very strong T-square coming up. Now, the next time that Pluto goes back to your sun, Uranus will have moved on. So Uranus will not be involved in that dance, in that trinity. So the intensity for the second connection to your sun will be lessened to a large extent. I think that ultimately, you have to be in the world. You have your true node up in the 10th house in Scorpio, and your south node is in Taurus in the 4th house. And so we move away from the south node and we move into the north node. And the 4th house is like hanging out at home. It's hiding out at home. It's like not being in the world. There can be a conflict between career and home and things like that on a mundane level. But you're here to be in the world. You front-loaded your chart. You've got the true node in the 10th house, so you've got to be out there. And guess what? Saturn's going to be moving into your 10th house. And it's already crossed your natal Uranus, and it's just on your midheaven coming into your 10th house. Anytime you get a Saturn 10th house transit, it's a peak experience for Saturn, and you need to take advantage of it. So there can be great reward and advancement for you in the type of work that you do for your career. And if you're not into your career, and that's not important, then anything having to do with transformational work and healing and depth psychology, Saturn will highlight that. And ultimately, I think you're here to work with people. I think you're here to help people get through very intense, very powerful, very turbulent times in their life. But I also think you have a very strong artistic streak too, which you have to honor as well. That Mars Jupiter trine, and the Mars Jupiter sextile, Mars Pluto trine is very intense and very powerful. You have the ability to endure and get through things in life, and you're inspired. You have a lot of inspiration. The good thing about all that Capricorn stuff is that you're just going to get better as you get older, and that's So I would say that the most difficult times in your life are behind you because you've endured a Pluto transit through your 12th house. Not everybody has that happen in their chart and in their life. You've endured that, and this next meeting with Pluto on your sun is kind of an initiation and a catalyst for you to move out of that deep transit. And ultimately, the moon, but this is a ways off, Pluto's going to conjunct your moon, it's going to conjunct your Mercury. That will have its own impact on your life. It will have an impact on your relationship with your mother and maternal figures, but that's a ways out. I would say that cracking from the chrysalis and rebirth awaits you, and it's not that far off.
I can feel that coming. Like I feel it. So I know what you're saying is true. So thank you.
You're welcome, and just have faith and know that time, since you have all this Capricorn, time really is on your side. Okay?
Okay. I like that analogy. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for calling, and take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's go to the 985 area code. Here we go. Hello there.
Hello. Yes, hello. I have an issue with my birth date. I was adopted from an orphanage in India when I was 2, and the only indication of my birth is my month, day, and year. There's no time. So I was wondering if you could still do a chart for me without the time.
Well, let's find out. I might be able to do some forensics here.
Oh, okay.
When is your birthday?
Is July 24, 88.
July 24.
Yes.
1988. Hold on a second. And
I was born in India. I was born in a place called Shimla, Shimla, India. It's in the northern part of India.
That's fascinating.
Yes.
How do you spell that again? S-H-I-M?
Shimla. Shimla. Shimla.
Sheila?
Shimla. S-H-I-M. Shimla. L-A.
Okay,
Shimla.
got it. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. Hold on.
Sure.
I'm having a hard time. Hold on.
Right.
Hold on. I think I can find it. Hold on.
Oh, thanks a billion. Thanks.
Is there a larger city near there?
Yes, there is. It's called Chandigarh. It's a huge city. It's in the vicinity there in that northern part. The northern part, if this helps, is called Himachal. Himachal, Himachal. Because they have states in India, and that is a state. It's in the northern section of India, close to Pakistan and I believe Afghanistan. It's within Nepal. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what the longitude and latitude is of that place. I really don't know to give you an exact location. But that would be close, because I was in an orphanage, and it didn't really give a place of birth. It just had Shimla down there because that's where the orphanage was.
Right.
So.
Let me try this again here. Boy, I'm having a hard time locating India stuff. So how do you spell Chandigarh? Hello?
Yes.
How do you spell Chandigarh?
Hold on. C-H-A-N. Chandigarh. Chandigarh.
There we go. Got it. Okay.
You got Chandigarh. It's a huge city in that area of Himachal. I believe that's how they pronounce it, Himachal.
Chandragre, Chandigarh?
Chandigarh. That's correct.
Yeah, got it. All right.
I may have been born there. I don't know. They had Shimla there. That's where the orphanage was. So.
Okay, so what we know about your chart is that day the moon was in Scorpio. Can you turn your computer down just a little bit? Okay, you have moon in Scorpio. Let me see what the moon is doing. It's opposing Jupiter. And, boy, we usually have to go through an event at that time. Thinking, Jupiter. You know, I have this. Let me just, because what I'm seeing here is the moon opposing Jupiter in the chart.
Okay.
And let me just do this. Hold on. Let me play with the time here a little bit. Because you were born in the orphanage, foreign country. Let's put this at PM. Do this. Now put your moon in the 11th house. So you in that. I'm going to be guessing, let's see, 2. Well, that's interesting. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So what I'm looking at here is, let me just go 2, 15, 45. Okay, so I'm just playing with the elements that I did by your life at birth, right? So what I have here is I actually have your sun in the 9th house, and I've got moon. This would probably be around 1:50, 1:55 p.m. because moon would be in the 12th house, and the sun would be squaring Pluto at that time, and the 9th house would be like being born in another country, right? So we would see the sun kind of rising there in the 9th house at that time. And the mystery of the birth would be the moon in the 12th house in Scorpio. And you would have, at that point, mostly a Sagittarian ascendant, which would also confirm the foreign birth in the 9th house. And Pluto in the 12th house represents institutions like mental institutions, hospitals, chapels, temples, monasteries. It can even represent orphanages. So that Pluto in the 12th house, I think, is telling because it's also squaring the sun. So and also you have birth elements, which are Cancer, and those line up in your 8th house, which again is a hidden, kind of mysterious, and occluded birth, and you have Chiron and also Mercury there. So this chart, which is right around 1:50, that time would give you the sort of astrological forensics of what that kind of birth would look like, okay?
Okay.
So what you could do is you could actually play with this, and it would be, you could play with this moving forward, and you can look up the aspects yourself, and you can ask yourself, does this really fit for me? Does this sound like something that I would, does this feel like me? You could, so it's it's like at 1:50, in that 1:50 local time in Chandigarh, and that's where you have Pluto and Moon in the 12th, Sun in the 9th, Sun squaring Pluto, and then Chiron and Mercury also in the 8th house. Okay. Interesting too, because your 4th house is Aries, and you have Mars just moving into your 4th. I'm sorry, your 4th house is Pisces. My bad. Pisces is your 4th house with this chart, and you have your true node in the 4th house in Pisces, and that's kind of a reverberation of the 12th house, which is ruled by Pisces, Pluto, and the Moon. And again, the 4th house would be, the 12th house rules all those things that I talked about, right? And it would also rule the 4th house and those same institutions, which would be monasteries, nunneries, hospitals, mental institutions, and orphanages. So you would have another kind of layer with the 4th house.
Wow. So you mentioned
so what I would do,
does that also indicate the time I was born?
That's the time that I'm looking at. This is the time, because I'm trying to assemble the elements that reflect a foreign birth, which would be Sun in the 9th house. Okay.
All right.
And also, as it turns out, there's the Moon in the 12th house, which is also birth, but it's the mother. It's powerful, but it's hidden away from the world. Right. It's in the 12th house. And you have Pluto there in the 12th house as well. And then you have, again, the true node in the 4th house, which is Pisces, and coming into this kind of orphanage kind of world of the 4th house in Pisces. So you can play with this, and on your own, 1:50 local time, and then you could look at the chart. You could go back and look at the planets and look at the angles, and see if they work for you. Right?
Okay.
I mean, this is a way for you to try it out and say, this does sound like me, this doesn't sound like me, wow, this really sounds like me. this really could be my birth time. So try that. I think it's a worthy exercise for you. And given the amount of time that we have here in the show, it's probably the best closest I can get.
So you're saying 1:50 time, is that afternoon or evening? Like
That's
is that,
afternoon.
I mean, is that after
PM. Hold on a second. I have to adjustment to the studio here. Hold on.
So, okay, 1:50 p.m. That's cool.
Yes, we're making improvements to the worldwide headquarters of Free Association Radio. Anyway, so there we go.
Okay.
Yeah. What else?
Well, there's just one thing I wanted to mention because of my chart. I don't know where Saturn is or how Saturn affects my chart in any way, but, I mean, if it's even in there. But I'm very attracted to older people. I'm in a relationship right now with an older woman. Do you see that in the chart? Do you see, I mean, maybe it's because I grew up in an orphanage. I'm maybe looking for a mom. I don't know what it is. I've often wondered if this is in my chart, if it's something that's meant to be.
Yeah, you have Saturn conjunct Uranus.
All right.
And that Saturn-Uranus conjunction, Saturn is older people, right? But it's having unusual connections with older people. It's in the first house. And they oppose your Venus. You have Venus in Gemini in the third. So there's an opposition there. And, in terms of the world, the world would see your attraction. And it would be, it would look unusual. But, it all gets worked out in the seventh house with Venus in Gemini. And Venus in Gemini, of all the signs, it's probably the one sign that is most given to same-sex relationships, right? Because it's Gemini, it's duality. It's working with two different people. And you've got it in the seventh house. So that would make sense.
So same-sex duality. Okay. So you mean it's, okay. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Wow, how a chart can actually.
Yeah.
Wow.
Why don't you go ahead and
fantastic. No, wait a minute. I want to say something here. You are fantastic, and I know you only have a few minutes. You're fantastic. I mean, you figured out the time I may have been born, which has always been an enigma for me. So that is really, really fantastic.
Well, the proof would be in the pudding, right? So you take this time and go to astrodeinf.com, astro.com, and plug in Chandanagar and then plug in the time and look at the chart and then find a book in astrology and read about Sun in the 9th house, Pluto in the 12th house, Moon in the 12th house on the ascendant, Moon in Scorpio. Look at these aspects and ask yourself, do they fit for my life? And then you can come to your own conclusion based on where all this other stuff fits. But I think it's a good place for you to start, for sure.
Wow, that is so, thank you so much. I was just on Blog Talk Radio today, and I happened to come across your show, never thinking that I would find my birth time, which is fantastic. It's a gift. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Go look up those aspects and just see how close they come to you. Okay.
Yes, sure. Thanks a million. I really appreciate this. I'm in tears. I actually am, because it gives me another piece of myself that I've been looking for. So it's really fantastic. Thank you so much. Really.
Thanks for being patient, hanging in there while you do that. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. All right, let's take an overseas call. Let's go to the 011. Here we go. Hello there. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, thanks for holding.
Hello?
Yeah, you're on the air.
Oh, I am?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Victoria. I talked to you before. I woke up early and thought I'd call. My birthday is 6/2/53.
Okay, hold on. 6253. And where are you calling?
I'm calling from Central Mexico.
Oh, that's right. Our friend Victoria, the artist. Yes.
Yeah.
Talented artist.
And it's. Thank you. I don't know if this is the right Victoria. I was born in Manila, Philippines.
Oh, okay.
At 2:28. Manila, Philippines, 2:20 a.m.
2:20 a.m. 2:20. There's a Victoria who calls from Mexico who's an artist.
I called before, and I am an artist. I don't know. Maybe it's me.
I think it could be you. All right, here we go. Manila, Philippines. All right. Okay, just to let people know, we only have about 8 minutes left in the show because I'm only doing a 90-minute show today. So if you don't get your chart read, I will be back next week. And, of course, you can find me at robertphoenix.com, where I do personal readings. Okay, Victoria, where do you want to go?
Just looking in terms of work and I've had last 2 weeks have been very strange in terms of work and relationships. So I'm just wondering what's going on.
Well, in terms of relationships, let's see. You have Venus over there in the 7th house, which is ruled by Aries in your chart. And you have Venus at 27 degrees, opposite your Saturn and Neptune in the 1st house. Relationships will more or less be kind of a challenge for you in some ways because of the balancing act you have to do with your artistic and creative expression and your self-expression and a lot of other things that are heavily loaded in your 1st house and trying to balance that out with relationships. Now, in terms of any kinds of like transit stuff, we really haven't had, I'm just trying to think, well, we have gone through some challenging, maybe some patches for you with Mercury transits to Venus, like Mercury squaring Venus. There can be some misunderstanding. You've also got the Sun going over your ascendant, and Sun going over Saturn, and Sun going over Neptune. That's going to be happening more as we move further and deeper into the sign of Libra. So generally speaking, if we look at this time of year for you in general, the Sun drops down into your chart and goes into the 12th house. And that's kind of a time of going within and kind of reassessing where you've been for the last year, reassessing, your resources, all these things in your life. And when we go into the 12th house, we trigger these kind of, experiences at times, and they're based on, what we're churning in the deep matrix of the 12th house. So your Sun is now coming towards the ascendant, and it's putting more pressure theoretically on, your identity, what you need in the world, that's Saturn, and some of the other aspects that are associated with those two planets. You've got Uranus trying your midheaven, or conjunct your midheaven in Cancer at 15. So we're talking Sun-Uranus square, Sun-midheaven square. Generally speaking, around September, October of every year, there's kind of what I would call a volcanic movement in your chart as it goes through the 12th house and begins to hit your ascendant, and Saturn, and Neptune, and squaring your midheaven. Now, your relationships will always have kind of it will have an impact on your relationships because of all the action that's going down in your 1st house. And so you have Venus in Aries, and you can have very successful relationships even though it's opposed Saturn and even though it's opposed Neptune. It's a little bit challenging for relationships. But you have a nice sextile towards Mars. And you have Mars in Gemini, and Mars in Gemini is, it doesn't like to sit still. It's always moving. So one of the things that it's important for you with your relationship is to be able to continue to move, to be able to continue to grow, to be able to continue to stay creative. So if you get stuck in a relationship, the key for you is to somehow use the alchemy of creativity with your relationship. And that can be anything from turning it into art to turning it into an artistic exercise and using your relationship as a process or something along those lines. The key for you is to not get stuck in the heaviness of the Saturn-Venus opposition, which is depression, to be honest with you, when it comes to relationship. I would say play more, worry less. That's important. Jupiter. Jupiter is right now on your midheaven and is conjuncting your Uranus. So you're going to have Jupiter in your 10th house, and it's going to be there from now until probably, December of next year, because half of your 10th house is Leo. That's actually a really great time for you in terms of career. One of the things that might happen, though, with Jupiter crossing your midheaven and sitting on your natal Uranus is that you might actually consider moving as a result of that, or having, or actually being asked to be moved. Like it could be your job might move you. They might say, we need you in this part of the world, or we need you in this part of Mexico, wherever that is, or you may decide that for yourself. But ultimately, Jupiter in your 10th house bodes extremely well for you creatively, especially when it moves into Leo in June of next year and begins to sextile, all those Gemini planets and all those Libra planets in your chart, and plus your Venus. You're going to have a peak period with Jupiter coming into your 10th house in June.
Robert, it sounds like you're reading my chart like upside down.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it 2:20 p.m. or a.m.?
A.m.
Absolutely. That's the problem. All right, let's change it. Here we go, Mercury retrograde. Bang. All right, flipping it around here. Okay. So the dynamics are a little bit different, but they're kind of the same. The challenge now in relation to Saturn and Neptune, right? And that becomes heaviness. You still need to play more because you've got that Venus in Aries in the first house. And you can't be constrained in relationship. Relationship can be heavy and a burden for you. And the move part I would still bring into play because now Jupiter is coming into Cancer. It's in your 4th house. In terms of career, Pluto is moving towards your midheaven. It's at 9. By the end of the year, it'll be at 11. So we're talking a major transformation for you in 2014 with Pluto in the midheaven. That's a big one. And that can be anything from complete change and alteration in career or career path. You could have more of your own business, or you could actually be asked to run somebody else's company. But there's going to be more responsibility you'll be taking on as Pluto hits your midheaven. So I apologize for the time thing.
No, it's fine. I was thinking. Actually, it's kind of interesting to look at it that way because all the aspects are the same, and the Saturn and the Venus. Relationships are heavy. I was just seeing a Capricorn, and that was like, I don't know. That was just, it's too heavy.
Yeah. So you have to. The thing for you with that Saturn, I mean, you do need commitment, right? Because Saturn on the cusp of the 7th house demands commitment. You have to have it. But you also have to have somebody who has the same kind of artistic and spiritual and mystical side to themselves. Because that's ultimately what you would be, wanting to build in relationship is it's like an egg, like a spiritual egg, like a chrysalis. So and you've got Uranus, now that I see this, Uranus is going through your 12th house, and that's agitating. That is very agitating with Uranus moving through your 12th house. Now, the good news is that next year it begins to come out of your 12th house. It gets to 16 degrees and it conjuncts your ascendant. So that will be good. 2014, 2015, very strong, especially with Pluto coming up on you. You're going to be fine, You're going to have to. The movement of the major planets is about stepping into yourself more. That's what it's about. And with Pluto on your midheaven, you can accomplish quite a bit with Pluto on your midheaven. But it's going to challenge, ultimately, down the road, it's going to conjunct your Chiron. It's going to challenge your Chiron. So whatever vestiges of you not taking charge and being the CEO of your life, Pluto will demand that, for sure. But that's a ways off. But there you go.
Well, I'm thinking now that I want to go back. I want to, I'm a designer and I'm an artist and I'm an art professor and I work for a corporation and, I find myself really struggling to I've been doing it for 5 years and, but there's this fear that's like, what if I don't make it? What if I can't make enough money? Blah, blah, blah. But then the desire to just, have my own company and just go back to being a designer is just, and doing artwork is starting to make me crazy.
Well,
so I guess I have to do it.
That's Pluto. That's Pluto beginning to hug your midheaven. That's you, taking control of, your own creative process. And Jupiter down in the 4th certainly indicates a type of move that's related to that. So it could be maybe someplace else in Mexico, maybe it's someplace in your town, maybe it's a complete relocation to some other part of the world. But that will get sorted out the closer Pluto comes to your midheaven and begins to oppose your Uranus, right? So you won't be able to not pay attention to that. It will demand that you do.
Okay, so I'm not crazy.
You're not crazy. Trust me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and it's true. It's like I have, I'm really, because I had that Saturn and that Neptune, it's like I'm being very cautious these days in terms of relationships. I want to take a lot of time just to make sure that, I don't jump in like I used to, that impulsively, and all of a sudden find myself in a situation that's not working.
Yep.
So
I think it's wise.
So, it's wise.
It's wise,
yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And with the work thing, I actually keep thinking that, because I've been reading about this, that as Pluto hits the midheaven, that it's like, because I just that I might lose my job and what am I going to do and blah 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 blah. So there's like a lot of fear going on too.
Sure. One of the things that you may want to do is be proactive, right? Work with Pluto.
Right.
Yeah. It's also, to me, a volcanic eruption of creativity. I mean, Pluto, can be a really creative planet if you work with the energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to do, that's, I feel like I have to make some sort of, major change. This being down here was a super major change because I moved from Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
I was on my way to New York and I ended up stopping by here and then I didn't leave.
Right.
So it was a really radical change and I'm going, is it working for me still?
Yeah, well.
So maybe, I don't know, I'm just, go ahead.
You live in the land of volcanoes too in Mexico, right? So that's also very Plutonian near the midheaven of your chart.
Yeah, it's in 2 hours away. Well, I live actually at 7,200 feet. It's the volcano's 2 hours away, but if every time it activates, it sets people running off to up here. This is so weird. Every time I've called twice and I never expect you to answer, and then you do, and then it's like, yeah, this is. I'm very, very restless, and I thought I had found a relationship, and I guess the whole thing of being controlled or having someone come in and try and manage my life just freaks me out. It's like, what?
Yeah.
You can't do that. And really concerned about, the work thing, and now it's like the focus is shifting, I think, it's not just so much now about just finding another job, but what do I really, what do I really want to do, and do I want to go back to doing what I was doing before, and making films again and doing design work again, and I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I'll see you on Facebook, and call back anytime. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And
sorry.
I'm a big fan of yours. I just wanted to throw that in.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. So have a great day. Okay.
Okay. You too.
Okay,
bye bye.
And with that, we've reached the end of the show. So I'm sorry if I didn't get your reading, but I'll be back next week. And you can always find me at my website, robertphoenix.com. This is for our friend in Mexico. This is my friend who passed away a few years back. This is Jorge Reyes, El Sendero. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay up on what's possible. I'll be back on Friday with Susan Dehim and Tessa Dick, the widow of Philip K. Dick.